Imagine walking into a market and seeing a vegetable so strange that most people would probably walk right past it. It's green, covered in bumps, almost alien looking. And if you taste it for the first time, the flavor might shock you. It's incredibly bitter. In fact, bitter enough that many people immediately spit it out. Yet in one place on Earth, people eat this plant almost every day. Not occasionally. Not as a supplement. As a normal part of their daily meals. And here's where the story becomes fascinating. That place is Okinawa, Japan, one of the regions with the highest number of people living past 100 years old. Scientists have spent decades studying Okinawa because the population there seems to age differently. Many older residents remain active well into their 90s. They garden, cook, walk, and maintain strong social lives long after retirement age. Researchers analyzing their lifestyle kept noticing something unusual. One ingredient appeared again and again in their daily meals, a strange vegetable called bitter melon. Locally, it's known as goya. At first glance, bitter melon doesn't look very appealing. Its skin is rough and covered in ridges, almost like a prehistoric fruit. When sliced open, the inside reveals pale flesh and seeds surrounded by a bright red coating when fully ripe. But the most unforgettable feature is its taste. The bitterness is immediate and intense. For many people encountering it for the first time, the reaction is confusion. Why would anyone willingly eat something this bitter? Yet in Okinawa, bitter melon isn't just tolerated, it's loved. One of the most famous dishes on the island is called goya champuru, a simple stir-fry made with bitter melon, tofu, egg, and sometimes pork. It's a dish eaten in homes, restaurants, and family gatherings, and for generations, Okinawans have considered it both nourishing and essential. But the story of bitter melon doesn't stop in Japan. Across Asia, the plant has been part of traditional diets for centuries. In India, China, Thailand, and parts of Southeast Asia, bitter melon appears in soups, teas, stir-fries, and herbal preparations. Traditional medicine systems have long associated it with digestive and metabolic health. Modern researchers eventually became curious. What exactly was inside this bitter fruit? When scientists began studying bitter melon in laboratories, they discovered a variety of compounds that caught their attention. Some appear to interact with how the body processes sugar, others show antioxidant activity, and a few compounds seem to mimic certain biological processes related to glucose metabolism. This doesn't mean bitter melon is a miracle cure, but it explains why scientists became interested in studying it more closely. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because in some countries, concentrated extracts of bitter melon sold as supplements have faced regulation or warnings. Not because the plant itself is dangerous when eaten as food, but because highly concentrated extracts can interact with medications or affect blood sugar levels in ways that require medical supervision. This has sometimes led to headlines suggesting the plant is banned, even though the fresh vegetable itself remains widely available and commonly consumed in many parts of the world. Still, the controversy has made people curious. If a plant has been eaten safely for centuries, why would extracts suddenly become controversial? The answer is actually simple. Dose matters. Eating bitter melon as part of a meal is very different from consuming highly concentrated extracts in supplement form. Traditional diets rarely rely on isolated compounds. Instead, foods are eaten in their natural form, alongside many other ingredients that balance flavor and nutrition. And that brings us back to Okinawa. Because when scientists examine the diets of Okinawan centenarians, they rarely find a single magic food responsible for their longevity. Instead, they find patterns. The Okinawan diet is built around vegetables, legumes, and whole foods. Sweet potatoes, tofu, seaweed, leafy greens, and modest amounts of fish form the foundation of many meals. Food is often seasonal and locally grown. Meals are simple and rarely heavily processed. Another important cultural habit is something called hara hachibu. This phrase means eating until you are about 80% full. Instead of overeating, people stop when they feel comfortably satisfied. Over time, this simple habit may reduce excess calorie intake without requiring strict dieting. Combined with nutrient-dense foods like bitter melon, this eating style may help explain why Okinawans experience lower rates of certain chronic diseases. But diet is only part of the picture. Lifestyle also plays a major role. Many older Okinawans remain physically active through daily routines rather than structured exercise programs. Gardening, walking, cooking, and social activities keep them moving throughout the day. Community connections are also incredibly strong. Older residents often belong to small social groups known as moai, networks of friends who support each other emotionally and financially throughout life. These relationships reduce stress and help maintain a sense of belonging. And then there is another concept deeply rooted in Okinawan culture, ikigai. Ikigai roughly translates to a reason for being. It's the idea that everyone has something that gives their life meaning, whether it's family, craft, community service, or personal passion. Having a sense of purpose has been linked in several studies to improve mental health and even longer lifespans. When you combine all of these elements, diet, moderation, physical activity, community, and purpose, the Okinawan lifestyle begins to make more sense. Bitter melon is simply one piece of a much larger puzzle, yet it remains one of the most intriguing, perhaps because it challenges modern assumptions about taste. In many modern diets, bitterness has almost disappeared. Processed foods often emphasize sweetness, saltiness, and rich textures, but traditional cuisines around the world frequently include bitter vegetables, dandelion greens in Europe, neem leaves in India, certain wild herbs in Africa and the Middle East. These foods were valued not just for flavor but for balance. And interestingly, many of them are now being rediscovered by chefs and nutrition researchers alike. Bitter melon itself is surprisingly easy to grow. The plant is a climbing vine that thrives in warm climates. It produces fruit throughout the growing season and can be cultivated in gardens or small farms. In Okinawa, many families grow bitter melon on trellises outside their homes. The vines create natural shade during hot summers while producing a steady supply of fruit. Fresh bitter melon is harvested, sliced, and cooked the same day. This close relationship between people and their food may be just as important as the food itself. In many parts of the modern world, food travels thousands of miles before reaching the plate. But in traditional communities, food often comes directly from the surrounding environment, and that connection may influence both nutritional quality and cultural habits. For those curious about trying bitter melon, it can often be found in Asian grocery stores. When selecting one, look for firm fruits with bright green skin. Smaller fruits tend to have a slightly milder bitterness. To prepare it, many cooks slice the fruit thinly and remove the seeds. Some lightly salt the slices for a few minutes to reduce bitterness before rinsing and cooking. It can then be sautéed with garlic, onions, tofu, eggs, or meat depending on the dish. Over time, people often develop a taste for its unique flavor. And like many traditional foods, it becomes more enjoyable the more familiar it becomes. Ultimately, the story of bitter melon reminds us of something important. Many foods that seem unusual or unfamiliar today have long histories in traditional cultures. These foods were not chosen randomly. They became part of local diets because they grew well, nourished communities, and fit into balanced eating patterns developed over generations. Modern science is only beginning to rediscover what traditional cultures already knew. Longevity rarely comes from a single miracle ingredient. It comes from a lifestyle built around balance, moderation, and connection. Bitter melon may not be the secret to living to 100, but it represents a fascinating glimpse into how traditional diets support long and healthy lives. And sometimes, the most powerful ingredients are not the newest discoveries. They are the ones people have been quietly eating for centuries.